Hey guys, Shannon Gonter here with Therapy by Shannon, and we've got a great mental health professional with us today to answer one of your questions that was asked. Remember, if you've got a question for us, go ahead and DM us and we will get it answered by a professional in the field. Today, we are here with Shelly Sowell. She's a licensed professional clinical counselor here in Kentucky. She offers counseling and consulting services through her private practice. She works with individuals, couples, business, even schools, and really helps them create mindfulness-based wellness for their communities. Her goal is to help create and connect people to sustainable and inspired ways of being. And if you want to learn more about her or connect with her, she's got a website. You can simply Google her name or you can find her at shellysowellwellness.com. But thanks, Shelly, for being with us today. We've
I'm
got
excited to be here. Thank you.
we've got a great question for you. Our audience always supplies such great questions. And I know mindfulness is definitely something that's very trendy and we hear a lot about. And this question is about mindfulness, but more specifically, how can someone be more mindful at work during that time of their life?
Yeah, I really appreciate this question. It's one that I get all of the time. I do work with individuals, but I also consult for businesses. So I'm
Mhm.
frequently brought in to address stress. But we were talking earlier, like this past year, I've been in the field for almost 20 years and I haven't seen anything like it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the same, right?
I was trying to earlier be like, it's I don't know, but like it's been a year.
Well, there's always something, and I like that you said mindfulness is trendy right now. I think what I've also seen I mean, I've been practicing for about 20 years, and it's only in the last maybe decade where it's in magazines and it's in your grocery store and
Mhm.
it's just coming in everywhere. So let's start with a definition and then a practice. And then I'll talk about three things that you don't need any experience whatsoever, anybody can do at work to be more mindful.
Perfect.
Okay. So, and if you see me look down, it's because I have my notes because the way I can be mindful at my job today is to make life easier for myself. So I just made a bunch of notes to make sure I cover things.
Yeah.
Okay. So to be mindful is to be in a state of present moment awareness. And it's a quality of attention where we're able to be present to our inner and outer experience with compassion and curiosity.
Mhm.
You often hear in a definition non-judgment awareness, like being non-judgmental. But the way I think about that is that curiosity piece. It's that we judge because we're human.
Mhm.
I'm going to suspend that judgment or that critical thought or that thing I'm worried about. I'm going to suspend it for a moment so I can just be clear about what I'm feeling, sensing, thinking in this moment.
Yeah.
In the mental health world, being in the present moment is where mental health, emotional health exists. So it's a natural capacity to be in the present moment, but it's also something we have to cultivate
Mhm.
because we're in this kind of 24/7 work culture where we could always be on and always be doing something.
Yeah.
And being mindful means we stop and we put our own boundaries in place and we just rebalance our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that reminder that like it's not something that just inherently happens for all of us. I think some parts, sometime in our life it did, but we live in a society, in a world that doesn't always foster that. So it's like I've always heard of it as like a muscle that we need to like nurture and grow and like learn how to do that for our bodies because it's going to look different maybe every day or for every person to be able to find that center and that balance.
Oh, yeah, completely. I mean, that's the thing people don't. When I talk with people, one of the things they're most surprised by is the impact of technology in the last 20 years. So, the last 20 years, it's changed everything. I mean, we used to have space and time built in, like the drive home or the time it takes to prepare the memo to give somebody instead of just a quick email response. And now your boss can text you at 9 p.m. And
Mhm.
what happens to your job if you miss that text?
Yeah.
So it's a it's a whole new world. And until we all catch up to the importance of mental and emotional wellness, we have to set our own boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do a quick practice.
Yeah.
Okay. This will be, I'm looking at the clock. Okay, I'm going to do my favorite practice that is about 3 minutes, and anybody can do this.
Cool.
So if you are watching and you want to try it out, I suggest that you find a chair that supports you. Maybe your desk chair is the perfect chair to try this out.
Mhm.
And sit in a way where your body is fully supported. So you don't have to sit up straight and rigid. You can just let yourself relax into the chair. And this is a practice to help us transition, to help us regain our balance if we're feeling especially stressed out, which if you're watching this, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay, so the first step is to allow your body to be supported by the chair, and then make sure both feet are on the floor. So go ahead and press your feet into the floor, which may be a strange request. But when we press our feet down, we're going ahead and we're sending a signal to our nervous system that we're okay, that we don't need to be running from the bear right now. We can actually stop, breathe, and get some balance. Now, at this point, you may close your eyes. If that is not a fit, you may look down at your hands in your lap. But the idea is to regulate your attention, to help minimize distraction. And now you can move inward for a moment to just notice your breathing. And you're just noticing how you're breathing with some curiosity. And then adjusting how you're breathing so that it feels comfortable to your body. You may want to try breathing in through your nose and out through your nose. And you also may want to try breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you are adjusting your breathing, you may want to try rolling your shoulders back and down. A lot of us carry our stress in our shoulders. If any of you clench your teeth at night or feel a lot of tension in your neck or your jaw, you may want to slightly lower your chin towards your chest. And then breathe into almost the sensation like you're breathing into the back of your neck just to relax those muscles and create some spaciousness in the body. For the final few moments of this practice, if focusing on your breathing um, isn't exactly working for you or you'd like to try something different, then I invite you to bring your attention to the space where your body is supported by the chair. And with every breath, you're allowing your body to be supported by the chair. If you feel distracted, that is completely normal. So just notice the distraction and bring your attention back to the breath or back to the chair. And wherever you are, you may want to take 3 intentional full breaths, slowly bringing your attention back to the room you're in and back to the task in front of you or the day ahead of you. Opening your eyes whenever you're ready.
Mm, that was
I
great.
see you moving, and that's exactly when we come out of a practice, just listening to our body and seeing where we need to stretch and move is part of the practice as well.
Yeah. And I love those little reminders that like you find yourself distracted because you probably will. That's the part of the brain that's doing its job. And just always reminding to bring ourselves back to that intention is so nice, opposed to being like, oh crap, I'm not supposed to be thinking about this thing. Because the brain's doing what it's supposed to be doing. But just bringing yourself back to that breath or that chair is such a nice reminder.
Well, the benefit of that kind of practice, that's a mindfulness based practice where we're bringing our attention to one thing at the exclusion of all else. So there's specific benefits that that has for our brain. It's a reset. It's a state of resting so that we can then take in the content of our day with a renewed kind of space.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, if anyone is training in mindfulness over time, you train just like if you want to be stronger and you want to go to the gym and work out, like you mentioned, the muscle part, you practice. And
Mm-hmm.
over time, we build this body memory that when we are feeling so stressed or our lives are upside down or chaotic, then we can just come back to our chair, breathe, start that process, and our body will remember how to release the distractions.
Yeah.
So it's built over time.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always ask people, what is one thing you experienced in that practice? And it could be absolutely anything, good, bad, beautiful, or ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So would you like to answer?
Yeah. I mean, like personally for me, like I'm usually in the or kind of in this role that I'm in, being like, okay, I'm gonna listen, I'm gonna interview, I'm gonna whatever. And then I'm like, oh, wait, no, I get to relax. I get to partake in this. Like I get to be part of the audience member. And that's really nice space to have that created. And to also a good reminder for me that like I can create that for myself too in all different ways of even right now, I'm at work and I'm doing those things.
Yeah, there's nothing better than modeling,
Mhm.
right? Like, and then experiencing it for ourselves. I mean, I needed that too. I feel more connected. It's hard to, and I bet people at work are feeling this. Like, it's really, we need human connection to grow. We need human connection to feel supported in this world. And it's really hard to connect through a computer screen. So, like, I'm excited to be here with you. And then I'm talking to people I don't know who are going to see this whenever. So I'm a little nervous. I'm a little disconnected, and that practice helped me drop in and feel more secure, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, so, So, can we talk a little bit more about why this is necessary?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay. Um, Specifically to the idea of work, mindful, being in the present moment. So think about that for a moment. It's like, how many times are we off to the races with the past? What could have happened, should have happened? We're reviewing a meeting from the day before, something we said, we did,
Hmm.
something from home, and we're just stuck. We're just stuck in the review. So that's being in the past.
Yeah.
Or how often are we in the future? Like, one day my life will be better when,
Hmm.
or I can't stop working until I reach this amount of money or this work goal, or I'm going to be happy when I have these things. And that's living in the future. And they are both sources of anxiety when we can't stop, when we get stuck in
Yeah.
the future or the past. And I
Hmm.
know you know this.
Hmm.
This is what we do, right? As counselors, we help people get out of that stuck space and into the present moment.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, with mindfulness, you have a state of being that's your natural capacity, but then we have practices. So we engage in the practices, whether they are 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 45 minutes. We engage in whatever is a fit for us so that we can build our capacity to release the past, release the future, and be with what's right in front of us.
Hmm.
Not to say we don't daydream, vision, or grow, reflect on the past, but that's very different. That's from a place of being stabilized in this moment. And then we have more conscious control over our review, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And I like that reminder because sometimes people have the black and white thinking of like, okay, so I can never think about the past and I can never think about the future. I can only be right here. And it's like, well, no, then you can have those things. You have a memory and you have ambitions, but like the conscious and choice and the awareness that's there is so important for the present space when you
Yeah.
go back in time or when you go into the future.
Well, I find that most people come to me. I work with a lot of business leaders. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. But just really anybody I work with, there's frequently a theme of anxiety and feeling out of control. And especially especially this past year in this culture,
Mhm.
pandemic and everything, we feel out of control. And so I find people are searching for a sense of regaining that ground. So I talk with people about authentic control. Where do you have authentic control? And part of it is when you can come into the present moment and see your life clearly and be responsive. Like, oh, this is information. Here's what I'm thinking, I'm feeling, here's what I'm experiencing. But conscious control rather than just reacting. When we get stressed out and we're in survival mode and we're we're tired, we're worn out, and we're just reactive.
Yeah,
And that's where people start to feel really out of control.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what is I think you had mentioned before kind of like some techniques or something like how to bring this into the workplace, I guess, let alone, yeah, into our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have 3 things to help it work that anybody can do. I thought through the things I teach people and what are the favorites. That's how I
Mhm.
came up with this. Um, but I also want to make this a little bit more concrete before we go into that. Just a second here.
Yeah.
I thought about what are the things people complain about the most
Mhm.
with work. And I have my little list, but it's that work never stops. It's that feeling of, if I don't check my email at 9 or 10 o'clock at night, or maybe my boss sent something, I'm going to miss out or not be seen as, a competent professional. It's like I said, I work with entrepreneurs. And so there's that thing of when you own your own business, you can constantly, there's no one to stop you.
Yeah. Never gonna end.
Right. You are your boss and you need to tell yourself to have some boundaries.
Mhm.
Um, and another one that's really big is with globalization happening and a lot of businesses are in multiple time zones, people are being asked to work at really strange times. So if we don't address it or we don't value our time in being present, then we could suddenly find ourselves working into the night because we are working with people in different cities. And sometimes it's necessary, but sometimes we can say no.
Yeah.
Um, and then the final one I wanted to mention that is, I don't know, I guess it's the most tender for me, is when people tell me that they go home from work or they're already in their home and trying to get out of their home office to be home, that they are taking mentally and emotionally their workday into family time.
Yeah.
And they're heartbroken, but it's like they don't know how to stop. So they're sitting at dinner with their family and their kids trying to tell them something and they have no idea. Or it's just that automatic pilot of now it's time for bath time. Now it's time to do
Mhm.
the story. Now it's time to sit and watch Netflix. Like, we're just on this autopilot and over time that builds stress that will wreck your immune system. It will impact your ability to concentrate on what you're doing. It impacts your relationships
Oh, yeah, for
because,
sure.
you know, it hurts when people we love are not present with us.
Yeah.
So I put that in a context that, you know, self-care and mindfulness and cultivating this natural capacity, it's not a luxury. It's imperative. It's really critical to being able to manage this world that we're in right now, the
Mhm.
complexity of it.
Yeah.
So, okay, three things. Number one, you can regulate your breathing. So, this sounds so basic,
Mhm.
but this is one of the main things. I'll be in a room working with, well, not this year, but I'll be in a room working with 100 people and I see that they don't know how to breathe.
Mhm.
So just take a moment to check in and see how you're breathing. Anyone watching? And if you're breathing from your chest or your throat or you're holding the breath, then you're constricting, which is a precursor to anxiety.
Mhm.
The chances are because I'm mentioning it, you're doing it. So let it go.
Yeah, reset. That always
Reset.
happens.
Mhm. So what we want to do is not especially a deep breath. It's just a breath extended from the belly. So think of it like a full breath. So just
Mhm.
full breath, and because it's a breath that's comfortable for you for the most part until you get used to it.
Mhm.
Um, so breathe as comfortably as possible and make sure check in throughout the day to stop and maybe do the practice we started with so that you can regulate your breathing and bring your body back into balance. It's telling your nervous system, in this moment, I am okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing attacking me. And that's a big deal because there's so much psychologically that feels like a threat in today's culture. Um, but our body doesn't know the difference necessarily. So we have to tell it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the belly breathing. I always find it so helpful to like physically place my hands on my body to like verify, I suppose, that like, okay, it's really going into my belly and coming out.
Oh, yeah. And that's a great idea if you're trying this at home to just do the experiment, hand on the heart, hand on the belly, and just take a breath and you can feel the movement. A favorite one for families is with kids to put a stuffed, everybody stretch out on the floor and put a stuffed animal on the belly and watch it rise and fall. Adults like that one too. So get your kids involved.
Very much.
Okay. So, one other thing about breathing, I find, especially when people have some kind of anxiety going on, that when I tell them to focus on the breath, it makes them more anxious. So, if you fall into that category, then just bring your attention to the chair supporting you.
Mhm.
Bring your attention to a sensory and outside object. You can hold something that's on your desk. You know, you can go outside and sit and listen for sounds in nature.
Mhm.
So instead of going internal with the breathing, you're noticing an external and just anchoring your attention there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great tip.
Okay. So number two is transition time. Again, this is the person who's, going home and they can't turn work off. And so transition time is a practice. And what I mean by that is we need transitions, especially working from home. People are just moving from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom,
Mhm.
and they're not taking the time to process. So build in time to breathe, to get yourself some water or tea, to sit in your car for 3 minutes. I used to have this talk, I guess I still do, called 3 Minutes to Save Your Life. And it's, start your day and transition from work with 3 minutes of breathing, even
Mm.
if you're just sitting in your car, just so you release the day and you don't carry work in with you.
Yeah.
Um, um, okay. The last one is mindful self care. So we hear a lot about self care. Um, so Shannon, like when you hear about self care just out in the culture, what are some of the things that come to mind?
Well, a lot of the things that I often hear are like what I always like to call them like myths or things like that, that like self care is expensive and self care is like bubble baths and massages and things like that, where it's like it frames it much more as like a luxury or a privilege.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's like if one more person just tells me to take a bath and it's going to fix it. So mindful self-care, present moment self-care is a few things. It's about noticing with accuracy what you're experiencing. In this moment I feel, in this moment I am thinking, and that's really about like the quality of your thoughts. In this moment my body is sensing, because we will frequently just keep going in the hamster wheel and we will override the system until we are stressed to the max and at crisis mode. Then we'll try some kind of self-care like a massage, but then we don't understand why we're tense and it didn't work.
Uh-huh.
Or people are breathing frantically thinking I need to breathe. And we all do it, like we all can push ourselves and get to that point and then wonder how we got there.
Hmm.
So mindful self-care is proactive and it's about prevention. And so you are looking at everything you do to take care of yourself and you're assessing, is this restorative or is this a distraction? So this is a big deal because I also hear about self-care like, well, I'm going to squeeze in that TV show even if it takes away an hour of my sleep.
Hmm.
And mindful self-care is just checking in to see if that's what we truly need. Um, if you're participating in distractions, and distractions aren't bad. It's just that if you're really stressed, you need to be doing the restorative part of this first. So, if it's a distraction because when you're done with the thing, it's like the anxiety or the stress rushes right back in. And sometimes it's worse because we didn't integrate anything.
Hmm.
So, restorative self care means I'm taking the time to stop. I'm releasing the things that keep coming. So it's like a journaling practice or a walk where we're paying attention, or playing with our kids, or being with somebody, a good friend. It's something that is restoring you back to a sense of alignment with who you really are.
Hmm.
That's mindful self care. Okay, so I'll stop there because I know we're probably at time.
Yeah, but those are also helpful because it is a space of like, okay, well, I'm breathing and I'm doing self care, I'm doing these things, and I'm still feeling this, weight on my chest or this stress or can't focus on my kids. And there's a space of like, I mean, if we're all alive, we're probably breathing. And if we do a yoga class, that's great. But like the intentionality of the mindfulness of breathing and doing self care and finding these things that like get us to the present moment opposed to like avoiding certain things or distracting ourselves in certain things is so helpful because it's we can so easily me guilty very much is turn self-care into to-do list of like, okay, well, I did these things that make me healthy and make me feel good, but it's like, well, sometimes when I do those things it checks those boxes, but other times I'm just doing them because they're on my to-do list. And so always bringing back into that present moment of like, is this what I need right now? Is this what my body wants right now? Is this what's going to help me right now? Can be helpful, and that flexibility needs to be a good reminder, I think, too, because we can be very rigid sometimes in those how to do things right. But there's really not a right or wrong way, in my opinion.
Oh, I love that you said that. Yeah, we're living in an age where self care is like an achiever, check the box kind of thing. Yeah, all of the things I'm advocating for today, if you don't remember anything else, it's like breathe and bring in space to your schedule for integration. So we're just receiving so much content all the time, and we need the space to process that content in order to be with what's in front of us.
Hmm.
So yeah, if it's like I would love for people to build into their schedule habits of mindfulness, like opening the day with something, closing the day with something. But at the end of the day, we just really need to set an intention of throughout the day stopping, checking in, regulating our breathing, and realigning with what's important.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I love that tip to kind of leave us all with. And guys, remember, if you've got a question for us, you can DM Mental Health Blue and we'll get it answered for you. And then if you want to reach out to Shelly, you can simply Google her name or go to shellysowellwellness.com. But thank you so much for answering that for us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.